He is not prepared to bow down before these kind of conditions. That's why we call him a tiger. He is truly the best of the best, superior most of the, superior category. And surely the personality whom we should take the, examples of attributes of characters from. And if we can, if we have the capacity in ourselves to absorb that. It's a very difficult task, but probably the modern era needs him so much, that's why. I'll come to one more point. I'm just, here in the Mysore University convocation, he was giving an address where he's highlighting point that I mentioned. Good men are not like trees planted by rivers of water, flourishing in their pride for their own sake, but they are like eucalyptus, reared in the Narcissus, differing in helpful tonic influence and countervailing the poisonous miasma. They are like the tree of paradise, whose leaves are for healing of nourishment, but be not content, therefore, merely to avoid evil and the forces of corruption. Society requires not passivity, not passive resistors, but active helpers. Society requires not just passive resistors, but active helpers. What a positive attitude he had. And what is the kind of affirmative, direction he has given to education. Affirmation in education, if we may, if we may coin an idea from him, is possibly he is the founding father of that affirmations in education. There is a dialogue between, there are some letters, so when ashram was formed by Rabindranath Tagore in Shantiniketan, Brahmacharya Ashram, and he wrote a letter, and there was a book which Rabindranath Tagore had sent, about that book also. And there were some other interactions between them at the time of giving him the honors and other periods. So that's also very important. I'm trying to save time, that's why. Now only the Calcutta Review, Rabindranath Tagore's observation after his absence, his passing away, when Sir Ashutosh suddenly died at Patna, Bihar on May 25, 1924. See, such a short span, 1864, 1924, very short span. Rabindranath was abroad. He came back on 21st July and paid tribute to him and told he had the courage to dream because he had the power to fight and the confidence to win. His will itself was the path to God. His will itself was the path to God, Tagore says. Tagore writes in the, Calcutta Review, Ashutosh heroically fought against heavy odds for winning freedom of our education. We, so in our own way, have been working for the same cause who deserve to be treated as outlaws by the upholders of law and order in the realm of the dead, had the honor of receiving from him the extended hand of comradeship for which we shall ever remember him. He had extended support, and there was a rule that you had to pay some money for extending support to an institution. Sir Ashutosh had said, you don't have to, send money. You just give a personal, guarantee that things will be done at your end. Calcutta University stands by you. And Rabindranath writes, Ashutosh touched the Calcutta University with the magic wand of his creative will in order to transform it into a living organism belonging to the life of the Bengali people. This was his gift to the country, to his country, but it is a gift of endeavor, of tapasya, which will reach its fulfillment only if we know how to accept it. Just finally, this is the last slide. Finally, I want to remember Sir C.V. Raman. He took a cut of 50% or more of salary. He was getting a small salary AG office, Accountant General, as a finance officer. And Sir Ashutosh invited him to join as a professor in the university. And he took it as half of the salary, as you know. Sir C.V. Raman, the Vice Chancellor of Calcutta University, Sir Justice Ashutosh Mukherjee invited C.V. Raman to join the university as Professor of Physics in 1917. At that time, Raman drew salary of 1100 in government service. This would reduce to 600 if he joined the university. Raman accepted the offer, resigned from the finance department of the government and joined as Professor of Physics at Calcutta University to teach science out of sheer love for research. With Raman's effort on two fronts, the University Undergraduate Department and the Indian Association for Cultivation of Science made considerable progress. He was offered an honorary degree. And you all know that he is the recipient of Nobel Prize on Raman effect in physics. So here is a person who is according to me, a divine personality on earth. I, on behalf of honorable members of my committee and the chamber, and maybe on behalf of many of my friends, offer our most sincere and heartful, regards, respect to this soul. And, we try to preach before the world that we'll try to translate, imbibe some of the attributes of this great visionary personality in the modern times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Banerjee. May I now request Justice Chittadosh Mukherjee to please deliver his special address. Justice Mukherjee.
May I have the permission to be seated and make my short speech? Professor Ban, you'll pardon me, I'm in a little problem for standing for a long. Of course, I assure you my speech is not going to be very long. Now, I am deeply touched by dedicating this interactive session in educating the future in memory of my illustrious ancestor. I am thankful to Professor Banerjee, Professor Mukherjee, Mr. P. Roy, and I am also immensely pleased to see Professor Sugato Marjit, who is now at the helm of the Higher Education Council of West Bengal. My grandfather's saying, what he did in his lifespan of 59 years, I believe remain still very relevant and might assist us, particularly not me, I personally, but those who will be now making changes in the offing about the higher education and education in general. Therefore, I propose to say a few words, what appeared to me, and pardon me if I be a little personal about him, naturally I am. But therefore, as I have said, that he, at a very critical time, at a point of change which was poised for the country and the Calcutta University, came at the helm of the university, made changes which, pardon me saying this, momentous changes. And now at the present moment, we are also at a turning point. Therefore, I believe Sir Ashutosh's life is one of those signposts, a pointer what the future ought to be, and to his path-breaking ways, his thinking on the question of education in general, his concept of the functioning of the educational institutions, promotion of languages, Indian languages, for forging unity, national progress, they remain, in my view, still very relevant. Therefore, I am sure it's not so much a chronology of his events, not so much the dates are as important as what he did and what he aspired. Now, as I'm grateful, both to Professor Mukherjee and Professor Banerjee for having said at some length about the career graph of Sir Ashutosh, his birth. Now, may I say that he was from a family which belonged to the emerging middle-class intelligentsia who were taking over the Bengal's primacy from the landed gentry and the business class leading the Bengali society. Therefore, one has to make a step by creating himself or making himself fit to face the challenge. Therefore, Sir Ashutosh was father, Ganga Prasad, who came from a family of rather this means, very moderate means, hardly able to meet the educational expenses. Therefore, in the Sir Ashutosh's life, I believe, in shaping his career, the role of his father, shaping his career, was very, very important. His outlook, his reading, providing books, engaging teachers, and persons who tutored in his early career. Sir Ashutosh's 150th birthdays were approaching on the 29th of June. He was born in a house in Malanga Lane, which is near the Wellington Square of these days. But Ganga Prasad was struggling to be a medical practitioner. He had shifted to Bhawanipur, where he lived first in a rented house, and then he built 77 Ashutosh Mukherjee Road. That road was those days called Rasha Road, or the full name of it was Rasha Pagla Road. One would wonder why was Rasha Road called a Rasha Pagla Road. I looked into that. I believe there's a lunatic asylum somewhere in Taliganj in the early days. Therefore, the approach road to the lunatic asylum was called Rasha Pagla Road. Anyway, after the death of Sir Ashutosh, that stretch of the road, a part of it, came to be known as Ashutosh Mukherjee Road. Now, that apart, Sir Ashutosh's training, his making of his mind was helped by education, both looked after by his father. Secondly, he was in a school where, celebrated teachers like Pandit Shivnath Shastri, who's I believe the younger people now still continue to read his classic book, apart from his religious leadership, about Ramtanu Lahiri and Tatkalin Bongo Samaj. That gives a picture, my young friends, if there be any, would be richer by reading the book about the contemporary situation. So therefore, my friend Mr. Ashok Mukherjee was asking me, although why in the Presidency College, Ashutosh and Narendranath Datta were classmates for a short while, for about a year or so in the first year, why did not both of them come together in later years? It's difficult to answer the question, except that they tread different paths. Maybe each rose to the pinnacle of the particular aspect of life which they followed, but I suppose Sir Ashutosh's mind makeup and Narendranath Datta's, his career, very brief but most brilliant of the Indians, they did not come closer to each other. Of course, in their later life, some of the sannyasis of Ramakrishna Mission came to Sir Ashutosh. That is another story. So Sir Ashutosha schooling and in the Presidency College saw him to be the beginning of a very, very interesting career, in the sense that apart from his very wide reading and the reading in subjects as apart as Sanskrit to the Latin and French, German, which he learned to be a mathematician. In fact, one thing he did, that he started researches in mathematics from while still he was the first year of the Presidency College. And one might be surprised that why did not turn to be a mathematician. In fact, his paper on mathematics, particularly geometry and conics, came to be published in Cambridge Messenger of Mathematics while he was still about, I believe he was about 18. In all, Sir Ashutosh had published about 20 papers on higher mathematics. He came while still in the college, member of very many learned societies, and he aspired, in his life, his first aspiration was to be a mathematician. And he had corresponded, his papers came to be published both in the English and other continental mathematical journals, also certainly in the Asiatic Society. He came to be associated with the Indian Association for Cultivation of Science. So his ambition, however, was not fulfilled. For reasons, he conducted pioneer research in mathematics, and it has been said, I believe Professor Ganesh Prasad said, that if he had continued to be conducted research, he would have been a world mathematician. But then it was not to be, maybe for good, not himself, but for the nation. The then Vice-Chancellor, first Indian Vice-Chancellor, Sir Gurudas Banerjee, tried to create a professorship, and those days at a salary of 4,000 per year. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the government of those days was unable to provide the funds. Then came an offer to be a professor in the Presidency College. Presidency College, Sir Alexander Croft, the then DPI, the Director of Public Instruction, asked him to join Presidency College as a professor. But that was not to be. The reason was, Sir Ashutosh insisted that if you put me in the Presidency College faculty, you will not transfer me to any other college. Secondly, wanted that he should be allowed to conduct his researches. Third was the most difficult part of it, of course. He wanted salary on equal scale with the professors, the European professors in the Presidency College. Well, Sir Alexander Croft was naturally angry, asking for an equality with the pay and conditions of service as foreign professors. So he did not get a job in the Presidency College. Then, as Sir Ashutosh said in his one of the convocation addresses, he drifted to law. He drifted to law, and Sir Rashbihari Ghosh, the legendary legal luminary, was a neighbor and a friend of my grandfather's father. To him was articled Sir Ashutosh, and when he went to him, Sir Ashutosh in his diary writes that Sir Rashbihari Ghosh said, only the very best of people should come to law, and even then no guarantee that such people, even if very proficient, would succeed in legal profession. Then Sir Ashutosh struck to law. But then, what he did, he continued until he became very busy in other preoccupations, teach in the Indian Association for Cultivation of Science. Dr. Mahendra Sarkar and Father Lafont, they were conducting the pioneer scientific research. And in fact, he had become a president. He had taught in the Indian Association Cultivation of Science, which was then situated in Bowbazar. Sir Ashutosh also approached another celebrated gentleman, Vice Chancellor Ilbert, whose name also associated with a bill those days introduced to make equality in the matter of trial of English and Indian offenders. I don't know how many know about the Ilbert bill. In those days, so he had a liberal outlook. Sir Ashutosh went to see him because Ilbert was also the Vice Chancellor. He was expecting, Sir Ashutosh writes in his diary, that he will be seeking a job with the assistance of Sir John Ilbert. But he said, make me a fellow of the Calcutta University. Sir Ashutosh's keenness to join the university. But the Vice Chancellor retired and proceeded to England. Sir Ashutosh pursued, wrote to Ilbert that make me a fellow which you promised to do. Then, there's an interesting correspondence. Ilbert said, Lord Lansdowne is going as the Viceroy of India. I have spoken about it. You are likely to be one. So in 1889, Sir Ashutosh's connection with the Calcutta University started as a member of the Senate. And very same year, he became a member of the syndicate. This relationship between Sir Ashutosh and Calcutta University endured till he died in 1924, 25th of May. And that was perhaps, and he took a very active interest in the functioning of the Calcutta University. That apart, he represented Calcutta University in those days, Bengal Legislative Council as a member. He became nominated to Calcutta Municipal Corporation as a member. Of course, his attendance in corporation was not as frequent as the Legislative Council. And also, he became elected from corporation to the, again, Legislative Council, then to the Imperial Legislative Council of those days. Lord Curzon, in the meantime, has caused the Indian Universities Bill to be placed for consideration. Gokhale and Sir Ashutosh, members of the Imperial Legislative Council, opposed the enactment of the legislation Universities Bill. Of course, the reasons why they opposed were not identical. Sir Ashutosh wanted greater autonomy, wanted that the predominance of the non-Indians in the composition of the Senate should not be there, but he welcomed the object of the Act to transform the Calcutta University what was originally thought of to be taking only examination, only an examining body without any learning and research conducted in the university. However, the bill was passed and Sir Ashutosh shortly was elevated as a judge of the High Court in 1904. It is said, apart from what has been said about his mother's disinclination to allow his son, who has become a busy lawyer of the Calcutta High Court by then, earning certainly money, measures of course now seem rather small, but in those days very large amounts. I mean, she was reluctant to see his son sit in the High Court as a judge. But then one reason why Sir Ashutosh was prompted to do so was because that would give him greater time to devote his attention to the Calcutta University. And he continued to be a member of the Senate Syndicate, and in 1906, I believe by that time Lord Minto has come to be the Governor General, he was persuaded to be the Vice Chancellor, and on 4 consecutive extensions from 1906 to 1914, he had been the Vice Chancellor of the Calcutta University. I hope I am not too long, but I suppose this part of the story is necessary to know how he functioned, how he deeply got involved in the functioning of the university. Now, Sir Ashutosh was made the chairman of the body to frame the regulations for the functioning of the university. Sir Ashutosh modified, enlarged, altered the primary object of the Indian Universities Act by providing 3 cardinal things. 1, the provision for teaching and research. 2nd, greater connection and greater control over the colleges affiliated to the Calcutta University. Thirdly, which part is not very much discussed these days, the matter of regulation over these schools which were recognized by the Calcutta University, whose jurisdiction in those days initially extended from Burma to Peshawar, to be very literal. So that very wide expanse of region, the Calcutta University functioned both as came to function as a body, not only holding examination, but teaching. So therefore, that began, to put it in Sir Ashutosh's word, almost a revolution, a transformation. The Sir Ashutosh came to be known, apart from being a great judge, primarily as the maker of the Calcutta University. At his death, his adversary, so to say, Lord Lytton, with whom they had fought each other, had said after his death, Sir Ashutosh was the university was Sir Ashutosh. Why it was so? Because